Hello, welcome to my latest video. You can see a piece of patchwork there that I'm going to make on my Treadle sewing machine. In the next video, I'm going to make this into a bag, a shoulder bag. But the purpose of this video is to show a little bit of how to use a Treadle sewing machine, the technique of actually treadling. And what I did with this piece of patchwork was I selected different pieces of black and white fabric. That was the theme from my scrap pile, and made it into a piece of slightly wavy patchworked quilted fabric. So here are the bits I selected from. This is my black and white pile of scraps. Some of it didn't make the final cut, like that floral one. Because it's black and white, I had quite a lot of music and manuscript pieces in there left over from making music bags, and some strips from making face masks left over, themed, the mathematics theme there and that kind of thing. So pulled out the scraps and gave them a quick press to make it easier to cut them into strips. There is a variety of fabrics here, some quilting fabrics, that's actually a piece of rayon, a scrap from making a top, and I've actually got, that's broderie anglaise cotton, and a piece of woven cotton there, yarn dyed fabric. So just using all the little bits up. The way I quilted this is going to be the lining, by the way, this piece here. The way I quilted this was to cut the pieces about 1.5 inches to 2 inches. And then I did actually do it as a slightly wavy quilting process. You'll see in the video, in one of my other videos, I actually show you the full technique of how to do wavy quilting. This ended up being a combination of just quilt as you go strips and wavy quilting, but I would choose one or the other. I kind of winged it a little bit. So here I am cutting up the strips. I'm not being too fussy about measuring the widths of them. It is about 1.5 to 2 inches. You can see as I go through them the different fabrics. I actually doubled over the broderie anglaise strips because of the holes in them. Even though it's going on a white backing, you can still see it. So I always double over if I'm using broderie anglaise scraps. And some of these scraps I didn't put them right up because there were some quite large pieces that were useful, but I just cut the scraps off the edge to make use of them. That's the lining. That's going to be the lining. There's all my scraps going in my basket. I'm going to move into another room to go on the treadle machine. This is the wadding I'm using. I'm afraid I don't know the weight of it. I bought this ages ago, but you'll see the way that I'm actually holding it, the weight of it. You can see what kind of thing it is. It's a polyester batting, and it's not fusible. I cut a piece of the wadding, 17 inches by 23, and then I laid it on top of some leftover curtain fabric that I've got, and cut that about 2 inches wider, 2 inches larger all around. And you can see me here marking 17 by 23 inches onto the piece of backing fabric. I'm going to quilt as you go on top of this, and so this gives me a guide of where to quilt to. Where to add the patchwork pieces to, and the border around the edges, just because there will be a margin of error and it does tend to move if you're sewing together lots of different fabric. It does move about. This is my treadle machine setup. If you've watched one of the videos, you'll see that this machine did actually come back from my allotment. It was briefly there and I was treadling off grid there. It was very enjoyable, but it wasn't doing it any good. So it's back home now. Just a word about that chair. Always get yourself a heavy chair if you can that's not going to move. You do need um you do need a bit of a anchor point when you're traveling on a sewing machine like this. So add your first piece face up into the middle of the fabric and then sew down, and you can either just quilt as you go and just do strips all the way down, or sew them into strips the length of the piece, the finished piece. I'm doing a bit of a mishmash here. I'm kind of slightly making it up as I go along. I realised that some of my pieces were too thick and too wide to do wavy quilting with. So I just sort of did a combination of that and normal patchwork, quilt as you go patchwork. The bag that's hanging on the back of the chair that I just showed in the earlier clip, that's the bag I made with wavy quilted fabric, and I'll link those in the description, and you can actually see a much better video that will demonstrate that process. So here you see me trimming off the excess fabric underneath as I go along. This is so that it doesn't show through, and to help the pieces to curve along. And then I'm pressing each time as I go. So here's the treadle sewing machine. I when I'm when I learned how to do this, I found it easier to position my feet like this, one at the top, one at the bottom, sort of in the corners. And my right leg is dominant, so get the wheel going by get the treadle going by moving the wheel, and then start with your dominant leg, foot. And if you think cycling rather than pressing an accelerator on a car and getting momentum going, really not an even one, dominate with one leg, one foot, and you'll find that helps you. Also, if you think about being on a swing and when you move your feet back before you've got to the edge of each swing on the swing, to keep the momentum going, it's like that. And if you use that mindset, it will help you to actually treadle. That's how I did it anyway. So I continued adding pieces as I went along, and started to make up the patchwork. You'll see that some of my fabrics are directional. So you can see the top of the Statue of Liberty there is going to be where the zip is, and then the bag's going to curve around underneath, or where the fast opening is, and then the bag's going to curve around underneath. So the other piece of the Statue of Liberty fabric is facing the other way. It's not that important, but if you are going to actually follow this process through to make a bag, or watch my other video where it's the turquoise bag, which I make into a Boston bag, then you do really need to have a bit of a thought as to direction if you have got some directional prints. So you can see me here layering up the piece of quilting. So I started off with I actually added a piece of muslin to this one because I didn't think that the treadle machine would like going over the fleece. Then I add my piece of fleece on top of that, and then piece of quilt as you go quilted fabric that you've just seen me making, and then pin them all together. So now that I've made my fabric, so you can either quilt like I have or just use a piece of perhaps a half finished quilt that you've just got a piece of, or you can just use a piece of fabric. But I'm using up bits, so I've quilted it. So in my case, I'm putting a piece of muslin behind because I don't think the machine's going to like having the batting or wadding against there, getting all caught up in the teeth. So I've just put a little piece of muslin behind as well. Now I'm going to see if it's possible to concentrate on my feet treadling at the same time as trying to quilt it. I'm not sure if I'm going to find this easy or not. Let's give it a go. Always say there's no reverse on these machines, but if you get your feet wrong, it goes into reverse. It's time to put the old treadle machine away. If you haven't already, do consider subscribing, and thank you if you have already subscribed. We'll be uploading videos probably about twice a week. It will be patchwork, home furnishing projects, off-grid sewing, that kind of thing. So if that's what you like to watch, then do consider checking back in. I've also really enjoyed reading the comments, which I do reply to, and it's been very encouraging and very interesting to hear what you have also been doing.